out of his sit-down with the New York Times. So let's talk about it all. We want to bring in senior editor for The Atlantic, David Frum, and CNN political commentator and former White House political director under Ronald Reagan, Jeffrey Lord. Gentlemen, great to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's talk about all the news that was made from Mr. Trump's sit-down with the New York Times. Let's just start, Jeffrey, with this disavowal that he did give against neo-Nazis. I'll read what he told the New York Times. Mr. Trump said, "I don't want to energize the group. I'm not looking to energize them. I don't want to energize the group. I disavow the group." He went on to say, "It's not a group I want to energize, and if they are energized, I want to look into it and find out why." Is that far enough, Jeffrey?
Yeah, I'll tell you something, Allie. The Wall Street Journal's Jason Riley has a great column this morning and wants to know why a meeting of 275 extremist Nazis at a meeting in Washington are getting all this attention from the media. And his answer is that it fits the narrative of the basket of deplorables. But he points out that in places like Wisconsin and Ohio, counties that voted heavily for President Obama turned to Donald Trump this year, white counties. So in other words, this is really a media narrative because the American left, as you've heard me say many times, is obsessed with race and has been ever since they instituted slavery in this country, all the way through illegal immigration by skin color. It's race, race, race all the time.
So Jeffrey,
it's a wrong picture.
Yeah, I just want to ask you a question about that. So neo-Nazis should be allowed, sort of with impunity, to have conferences and have meetings and say whatever they want and set up websites. And at what point should the media pay attention to them?
Well, you know, Allie, the point is, do we pay equal attention when these things go on the left? For instance, Hillary Clinton was endorsed by the Communist Party chairman. Where was all the attention to that? There was none. There was none. They have a First Amendment right. Everybody in this country has a First Amendment right, but we don't have to pay attention to people who have First Amendment rights.
Sure. No, agreed. Look, it's always a judgment call of when you start to pay attention. And I just was...
I just think this is obsessive. This is way over the top.
Yeah.
These are Nazis, for heaven's sakes. Leftists, I might add. Nazis being National Socialists. No. Just who cares?
David, what's the answer to that? Should we in the media pay attention to them or no?
No, aside from the dopey claim that the American left instituted slavery, I basically agree with what Jeffrey Lord just said, that this is a distraction. The news from that New York Times interview was Donald Trump's confirmation that he'd improperly used the office of the presidency to try to enrich himself with his golf course in Scotland. Every minute that you are not talking about Donald Trump's self-enrichment and corruption is a minute you are wasting. There will always be psychopaths who will throw the press dog biscuits on things that get the press excited. Pay attention to the money. That is the story of the next 4 years. The organized, self-dealing, self-enrichment of the Trump administration.
Okay, point taken. Let's get to that. Let's talk about the other things that came out of the New York Times. Here's one of the things that Donald Trump said about conflicts of interest. Let's start there. About all of his various business holdings internationally, and whether or not when meeting with, say, a group of Indian developers when he is now president-elect, meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister, his daughter was there. She has also an international retail business, putting his children on the transition team. Ivanka, his daughter, was on a phone call with the Argentinian president. David, I want to go to you because you didn't have as much time as Jeffrey. Here's what Donald Trump said about this. The law is totally on my side, meaning the president cannot have a conflict of interest.
No, the law does not give us a remedy if the president has a conflict of interest. But of course the president can have conflicts of interest, and this one does. But it is illegal for the president to solicit bribes. It is illegal for the president to use the power of his office to extract gratuities from foreign officials. Those are clearly illegal things. And it is true that we don't have an adequate mechanism to police conflicts of interest, and that there's some separation of powers problem there. But our first safeguard against conflicts of interest has always been the assumption of disclosure of tax returns, for example, which every president since Watergate has done, and this president-elect almost certainly will not do. And the second is the sense of honor, integrity, and good sense of the people we've elected to the president. Most of the presidents have been very honorable people who've gone out of their way to avoid creating conflicts. Donald Trump, these aren't conflicts, by the way. These are abuses of power. A conflict is a temptation. If you take the temptation, accept the temptation, if you actually say to a foreign politician, in the case of Nigel Farage, please organize a political movement to increase the value of my Scottish golf course. That's not a conflict of interest. That is an abuse of power. And of course, there's so many others.
Jeffrey, are you comfortable with these?
Well, look. This is the new version of the Never Trumpers here. I mean, that's really all this is.
It's called integrity in government.
Right. So when the Kennedy family didn't give up the merchandise mart when John F. Kennedy was inaugurated, there was a massive conflict of interest throughout the Kennedy administration, particularly when the president of the merchandise mart.
What about this, Jeffrey? What about these? That in present day,
Franklin Pierce and other things that happened 200 years ago. This is today.
In present day, Jeffrey, are you comfortable with all of these mixing and matching of personal stuff and now government stuff?
Look, there's no question that this is going to be unconventional. There's no question. But, every time Donald Trump breathes, David is apparently intent on saying he's committing a conflict of interest and should be what? Impeached?
Yeah.
I mean, this is where this is going. These are the Never Trumpers. I mean, let's just be candid
Jeffrey,
about
just one second. I just want to be clear on something. I understand, Jeffrey. Just one thing. If the name that were substituted in here were Chelsea Clinton, if Chelsea Clinton were on Hillary Clinton's transition team, if Chelsea Clinton sat in on a meeting with the Prime Minister of Japan, you wouldn't care.
I would not care.
You didn't care about the Clinton Foundation and CGI.
Okay, well,
I wrote a whole column at the American Spectator yesterday about this in terms of Jared Kushner. Presidents from the time of John Adams on, John Adams had his son appointed minister to the Netherlands. Andrew Jackson's nephew was his private secretary for 8 years. One president after another has used family members inside the White House, if not in the diplomatic corps or the military. There's nothing new here.
David, go ahead.
Look, in fairness, I think Jeffrey may be either counting on the viewers not to know the law, or he himself may not know it. But the laws of the United States are different than they were during the Adams administration in the 1820s. And there are now anti-nepotism statutes. But the thing here is not to be concerned so much just with the conflict of interest. We have actual abuses, and there are prophylactics that we can take that will protect this president from the impeachment to which he may be driving himself. For example, Senator Wyden from Oregon has a statute, a bill that would require the president to disclose his taxes, as every president since Gerald Ford has done. That would be a great protection of public integrity. Again, we've counted on presidents to do it willingly and voluntarily. We've counted on them to be people of honor. If you have a president who's not a person of honor, then you need a statute to say the president must release his tax return, and if he doesn't, the Department of the Treasury should do it. So that would be a great prophylactic.
Got it. Gentlemen, we have to leave it there.
36 presidents who didn't release their tax returns, and we survived.
Fine. Jeffrey, we hear you. We hear your perspective. Interesting times ahead. Thank you very much. Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Happy Day, Allie.
You too. Let's get to Chris.
All right, so Donald Trump's administration is starting to come together. We're going to dig into why he picked a former detractor, South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, to be ambassador to the UN. We're going to get the bottom line next.
Choose to go, to indulge your curiosity, explore a new road, to see where it takes you. Meet the leaders who change the game. No matter where you are, no matter what the currency, when you run the numbers, they may surprise you. But stay your course. You're on the path to success. See